Good evening, everyone. So grateful to all of you for your engagement here over these weeks as we have wrestled with some challenging ideas and had some invigorating conversation in our study together of the book So We and Our Children May Live. Tonight we will be considering the final section of the book, part 3, Imagining a Decolonized Future. And so this final section is one where Sarah and Sheri invite us to use our imaginations and to imagine a different world based on systems that pursue life. And so as we gather tonight, I would like to invite us to practice using our imaginations and to imagine this world made of systems that pursue life. So I'm going to lead us in a little centering exercise that will engage our imagination. So I invite you to find a comfortable position in your chair and become aware of your breath. And for this exercise, it may be helpful to close your eyes. We're going to use each of our senses. And so sometimes closing our eyes helps us to focus on our senses one by one. So as you're breathing, let your imagination bring to your mind a place or a part of the world that you long to see flourishing, that you want to flourish. It could be a particular system in the world, like a food system or a local economy. Or maybe you want to imagine the place in the world you know best, your local ecosystem or your neighborhood. So choose one part, a beloved part that is connected to all the other parts of the world in your imagination. Now we're going to let our senses guide us in imagining the flourishing of this place or part of the world. And I'll guide you through each of our 5 senses. And we'll take a few breaths to imagine, to really get in touch with that sense and what it brings to your imagination. So in this place or system that you are inviting flourishing for, what do you see? As you imagine its flourishing, what do you see? Now become in tune with your hearing. In this place or in this system that is flourishing, what do you hear? Bring your attention to your sense of smell. In this flourishing place, what do you smell? And your sense of smell may bring you in touch with your sense of taste. What do you taste as this place or this system flourishes? And finally, what are you feeling in this place of flourishing? I invite you to open your eyes and come back to the present, bringing your engaged imagination with you to our time of discussion tonight. And I also want to welcome my colleague Lorraine Stutzman-Amstutz, who's with us tonight. And Lorraine is going to have a prayer with us.
Let's pray together. God, creator of all life, open our eyes to see a world renewed with lush forests and healthy water systems. Open our ears to hear a world in harmony with all the sounds of healthy living species that are around us. Enliven our sense of smell to breathe in the fragrance of renewal, including the crisp scent of rain blessing the earth, flowers blooming, and the warmth of a shared meal. Open our mouths to taste the sweetness of abundant harvest feeding every person, and clear water quenching every thirst. Open our hands to touch a world made whole, where no one is left in need, where hands clasp and where the earth rejoices. May our senses awaken to the beauty of what you have called us to, and may we continue to be vessels of your peace in a flourishing world. Amen.
Lorraine. So I'd like to open our time of sharing as a large group here this evening. I wonder if any of you has a quote from the last section that you would like to share with the group, and then a couple of sentences to explain why that was significant to you. And you can raise your hand and I will attempt to call on you. I see Melissa's hand. Go ahead, Melissa.
A couple of things on 244. My job on the earth is not to be successful, it is to be faithful. And I've thought about that lots of times over my life. I never wanted to be successful with money, and just I find success in other things. And that also echoes, I don't know where the quote is, the idea that the future is scary and the past is comfortable because we know what it is. So that gave me an understanding about why MAGA is so comforting, because that's, again, that's the past. It's no imagination.
Thank you, Melissa. And just a reminder that there is a reaction button at the bottom of your screen, and if you hover over that, you can actually click the raise hand, and that way I will for sure see your hand is raised. Or if that's not working for you, you can raise your physical hand. It's just, I can't see everyone on one screen. So when you do that, it puts you on my screen so I can see you. Autumn, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yes, how this is, just think Christians, will decline to act and say it's too political. Politics is a process of making decisions collectively. The opposite of political action is individual action. Individual action will not get us where we need to go. So think of that anytime it's like, oh, don't get, too political. It might be necessary, be political. And, could I invite some people to the last meeting?
You mean people who maybe have been reading the book on their own or people who
Yeah,
maybe
just
haven't even read the book yet?
Yeah, just interested.
You know what? I'll be in touch with you about that, Autumn. There might be opportunities for a group to connect with Doe from the coalition, who's going to be with us next week in a separate meeting. But we can. How about we email about that?
Mhm.
Thanks. Anyone else who would like to share a quote? Okay, I see Wayne and then Carol.
I think this quote is a nice complement to the one that Autumn just gave, engagement with political systems. This is on page 184, where it says, ordinary people belonging to the dominant culture must also resist the casual co-option or co-optation of indigenous lands when resources like water, copper, and lithium are found within indigenous borders and then claimed in the name of economic development and national security. And I can see this becoming, first, the idea of resistance is not all that familiar to me, but I can see the necessity of it, especially as economies shift to mining new sources of minerals to electrify systems. And much of that lies on land that has indigenous land claims. So I'll just put a plug for a song that I consider to be a bit of an anthem towards resistance, but Josh Garrels is a Christian musician who's got a song called Resistance. And I listen to it every once in a while and it emboldens me. So I'll just drop that.
Wayne, Carol, would you like to share something? So yeah, can you hover over the microphone icon at the bottom left of your screen and unmute yourself, Carol? So you're still muted. If you can see that microphone in the bottom.
There we
left.
go. There we go.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Yeah, I was just struck by our reality is not what it seems. And so the quote on page 263 said that we must find the reality with the capital R, glimmering everywhere around us, embodied by the Creator. And we must have the courage to join together to imagine, create, and construct with hope and humility systems that pursue life. And that kind of got me to thinking then, and I don't want to get ahead of where you are tonight, but I had a question related to that at some point.
You can name your question if you'd like.
Well, it had to do with the poem about doors, the last poem.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
That's part
I
of
thought
tonight's.
that, okay, so I thought that in the poem, it was calling us to move forward to possibilities and to experimenting with these doors to see where God is moving. That would create systems that pursue life. I'm thinking that's what this is asking us to do. And I usually think of larger systems that we live on, that we have to kind of work at or tackle or protest or challenge. But I began to think with the poem on doors that maybe it means developing new, smaller systems within the larger systems. I don't know. That's just a question I have.
Thank you, Carol. And with all art, there are various ways to interpret that. Maybe your small group would like to talk about that poem more. I think we'd have time for another. Okay, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I liked the quote on page 260 and 261 by Rachel Donald. Evolution, life itself, is a relationship between things. It is within the in-betweenness that possibility lies and change occurs.
Yes, that in-between space that can also feel uncomfortable. Yes. Right, thank you for engaging with one another in your small groups. And we'd love to learn from one another. What insights do you have to share from your small group times? If you are sharing from your small group, if you could raise your hand and start sharing. All right, we'll start with Megan.
Hi, everyone. We had a lively and wide-ranging conversation that mostly circled around a couple of challenging disconnects from the book and the sort of scientific consensus around what climate change is actually going to do to our environment, and how that doesn't quite square with some of the like slow systems changing thinking that is presented in this section of the book. And kind of parallel to that, whether or not the church is capable as a body of any of that transformation.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Sounds like a deep conversation. Yeah. Michael.
Yes, I would say that Wayne, who shared about resistance earlier, is in our group, and I think the just one center of our conversation was the resistance that can come from a congregation that is choosing to try to go against the flow, living in community. Not choosing the best part of town, trying to affirm those that are marginalized. It's not, I mean, certainly Native peoples, but also LGBTQ. And that has been a part of Gary and my Willow Avenue experience at our church in Fresno area, Clovis. So hearing other voices, finished it up with continuing to hear the voices of Native Americans and finding ways of proceeding, as well as other groups such as African American Experience.
Thank you, Michael. Kirsten, could you share for your group?
Yeah, we were starting to talk about, we started off talking about this challenge, you know, to join with Indigenous people and how it feels like we have no choice. That's what we must do. But how will that all happen? You know, it just feels overwhelming. And it's hard to imagine something different from the economy that we have right now. How would that be restructured to live in a way where we're giving and receiving? And we were thinking about private property as well, and what would it look like what would the different thing be? but also knowing that this whole concept of owning land, giving land back, is still within, maybe within a kind of a Western or colonial way of looking at things, because Indigenous people didn't own the land, that wasn't their worldview. Okay, generally speaking. So yeah, so what does that mean? And that how do we maybe start by being in relationship first and really listening, as opposed to just assuming that we'll just start by giving things back, that would work out. And yeah, and we ended by talking about the first order and second order change, and that what finding examples of that, like in our churches or in how we work with different communities. Yeah, those are some of the things that we covered.
Thank you. Adam, do you share?
Sure, we had a wide-ranging conversation as well, but try to put it in a small nutshell. One thing that's repeated very often in the book, and I think our conversations, is that we all live in a closed system, mutual dependence. Therefore, it requires a community decision, like Sheri was saying when she was talking with us last time. And not just a community decision per se, but a very intentional one. And as a church, we represent one of those kind of models of intentional community. Something else that struck our conversation was, I think it was Sarah who said something like, if we're failing now, what's the harm in trying something new and different and hopefully better? So that is, in very summary form, our conversation. I did have some strong dissenting opinions about part of the chapter, but otherwise, I think we all very much appreciate the book.
Thank you, Adam. Katie, what would you like to share from your group?
Sure. We talked about a few different things and themes, but I think where we kind of landed towards the end was talking about individualism, and that our individual actions, while helpful, like will ultimately get us there, and the importance of doing things in community. And then we talked a little bit about also being, in communities that maybe don't think like we do, or that might not want to hear anything that is coming from this book, or that, it might be difficult to work within, but just, but that's part of the challenge, I think, of the world that we live in. And so finding ways to be in community, even in when it's difficult, or even if it's hard to reach across those boundaries, but also sharing encouraging things that are taking place in our different communities that feel like little glimpses of, the lived reality that we want to see.
Thanks, Katie. And then Phyllis, you want to share from your group?
Yeah, somehow I can't figure out how to raise my hand, so good thing you were in my group. Well, we started out talking about capitalism, and basically, I mean, we were saying we middle class North Americans are so enmeshed in capitalism. It's kind of like it's kind of like the fish in the water doesn't even know that they're in the water, right? And so we are so enmeshed in that it's very, very hard to get out. And then we also talked about human exceptionalism. We tackled all the tough topics, I think. But anyway, it was I think we did agree that we needed a group, but that this is to make changes. It's not individual stuff is just clearly not enough. And we do need support, and it will be very, very difficult to get to the vision that we find in this book, because the powerful will never give it up willingly, right? And so we have a lot of work cut out for us. And we didn't really talk about this in the group, but I'm just going to say this. You know, how much are we praying about this would be maybe one of my questions. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know if somebody else in the group wants to say more, that'd be great.
Well, thank you, Phyllis. I think that is a wonderful note to bring us to a close, and because prayer also is a way of practicing imagination, which is what this whole section of the book is inviting us to do. So yes, let's pray about this. Let's activate our imaginations and be open to what that might lead to. Wonderful invitation. Well, thank you so much for sharing from your small groups. It's helpful to hear what you each covered and hear the resonance, as well as the different threads that were lifted up in your groups. Thank you for engaging them tonight and in the previous weeks. Next week, we'll have a little different format. Do Hoyer is a staff person for the Coalition to Dismantle the Doctrine of Discovery. And Do will be with us next week to help us think about actualizing some of what we've done. Where do we go from here? What do we do about this? And so we look forward to the time with Do, and I do encourage you to join for that final session, so that we can not just sit with all the questions of what next, but engage that together. As I was reading this final section, a hymn from our hymnal, from the Voices Together hymnal, came to mind. And so I'd like to leave you with the words from number 412 in Voices Together, "My soul cries out." This is a hymn that is in the voice of Mary, based on her song of justice and hope found in Luke 1, Mary's song. So I'm going to share with you verse 1 and the chorus of this song as a blessing for us as we come to a close tonight. "My soul cries out with a joyful shout that the God of my heart is great. My spirit sings of the wondrous things that you bring to the ones who wait. You fixed your sight on your servant's plight, and my weakness you did not spurn. So from east to west shall my name be blessed. Could the world be about to turn? My heart shall sing of the day you bring. Let the fires of your justice burn. Wipe away all tears, for the dawn draws near, and the world is about to turn. May it be so.